man.
It's already off the rails.
It's done. It's already
30 seconds. Not even 30 seconds.
I'm not even gonna get into it. Welcome to another edition of DCTBD.
Indeed.
Produced by One Love Massive. I'm your co-host Ian. Joining me as always, lovely Michelle Bush. Michelle, how are you?
good evening.
And the venerable Marcus Dowling.
Hey, y'all.
Sir,
What's going on?
great to have you back.
I'm glad to be here.
Great to have the whole crew here.
Yes.
We got Mike Phillips back behind the booth, making us sound
Mike.
like what we sound like.
Which
I'm sure is awesome.
Where are we right now?
We are. I was about to get to that.
Okay.
We are in the Mind Space Nerve Center.
Yes.
I like
This
that.
is a literal nerve center.
The nerve center.
Not a literal nerve center, but
Yeah, not get on my nerve center.
a metaphorical nerve center. But the Mind Space here, they are so good to us, and this space is like super amazing. I can't wait till we start doing shows out in the common area once we have
Absolutely.
more than 2-3 viewers.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me get online so we get 3. Hold on.
Boom.
Boom, I'm there.
There it is.
Awesome.
Damn.
So, yes, we are your weekly conversation about the biggest news stories of the week. Guys, how was your weekend?
My weekend was...
Michelle, how was your weekend?
My weekend was pretty good. CBC was in town.
Always a fun time.
I guess so.
Wow.
Uh-oh.
Honesty.
Uh-oh.
We just entered the shade zone.
The shade zone. For people that don't know, I grew up, a child of the CBC in a sense. My mom and dad ran with a few people from back in the day. Always a good time to see us come together, have really great discussions and panels. And I just think that the CBC just took a turn some years ago and it just became party central. And I think a lot of the focus was just, taken away from what the CBC, was about.
Yeah.
And so, as I call it the old people's Freaknik.
I think the Weave of the Night award is a little tacky.
Yeah, well,
It is what it is. I mean, this is the generation we're in now.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Here we are.
But so it was just very interesting because as I was walking down 9th Street, on my way to one of the parties that I always go to every year, is the Kappa party, and Secret Society was performing. So shout out to Mike, who is
Hey, brother.
co-hosted on the show. The streets were just kind of empty, and it was really kind of crazy because I'm like, where is everybody? So I'm figuring, the storm, a lot of people just kind of canceled their reservations. I feel like, because of Trump, they just didn't want to come. Who knows? I heard a lot of the panels were just kind of empty. So it's just like, really what, I guess the CBC needs to,
we're going to have to discuss this. Is there the requisite energy in the African American community?
Yeah.
This is going to be a future topic.
I think it's
on DCTBD.
Yeah.
Down for the conversation.
Yeah, I think the conversation is
because if not, people need to know.
Yeah, it's definitely
People need to know.
And maybe I'm wrong. I can take that. But it's definitely a conversation.
That is definitely going to be a deep dive that we're going to take
Yeah.
very soon here on DCTBD. Tonight, we actually have quite a bit to get to. This was a pretty remarkable week of news that has continued pretty much right up to airtime tonight.
Yes.
As per usual.
So as
per usual.
It's where we are now.
There was a tweet that we sent out, and that was it.
Yeah, topics tonight. We're going to talk about Paul Manafort flipping. I'm calling that segment, "The Call is Coming from Inside the House."
I just call it pour up drank.
Drank.
There's going to be, a lot of that. What's going on with the Kavanaugh confirmation? Just today was a lot of really craziness. And so we're going to talk about it and kind of see if it actually changes our perception of the end game here with the Kavanaugh confirmation. I'm going to, little spoiler alert, I'm of the opinion that it really isn't going to change much.
No, I don't think
But then again, I've been wrong about my sort of status quo preserving predictions. Then I want to talk a little bit about the economy. We keep hearing from Donald Trump. We keep hearing from Republicans how great the economy is going, despite the fact that it is functionally a continuation of the Obama economy with maybe a little bit of sugar high and in the form of tax cut and regulation cut. But an interesting article from last month in Forbes looked at some studies, and the title of the article is "America's Real Economy, It Isn't Booming." So that should give you an indication of some of the information that we're going to pass along to kind of let you know what is really happening among our fellow countrymen and women when we hear all this stuff about how great the economy is. A lot of people aren't feeling that. So we'll discuss that. We'll do our Bish Sesh, and then we'll do my favorite thing. We're going to end it with my favorite thing. I'm going to indulge you all with a little story.
Story time with Ian.
That is going to explain my Twitter handle.
Story.
Collusion.
Going to explain my Twitter handle, which is @Wokesense84, and I'm going to talk about why that is, and I'm going to tie it in with a very, very good friend's birthday tonight. But anyway, let's get this going, guys.
Yeah.
Last week, Paul Manafort.
Oh, Flippy.
Well, he's the latest.
Flippy.
He's the latest.
I think we've got his nickname. Last week, Flippy.
Flippy.
Decided to plead guilty to one count of conspiracy.
Something's in this drink.
This is straight key lime LaCroix, which is this is like my level up because lime LaCroix was my favorite. Now they have key lime LaCroix, and it is.
Dear LaCroix, will you sponsor us here on DCTBD?
Dear LaCroix, we are drinking your product. We're doing this ad free.
Yeah.
Least you could do is step in.
All right, let's talk about
Flippy.
Flippy.
Old Flippy. So he pleads to one count of conspiracy to obstruct justice. He was President Trump's campaign chairman from March through August of 2016, a period that encompassed both presidential nominating conventions and also encompassed the period where WikiLeaks dumped a lot of documents pertaining to the Democratic National Committee,
right.
The Hillary Clinton campaign, John Podesta, stuff that was illegal to obtain. But he was in charge. He was running the show when that was going on. In return, the government dropped 5 of 7 charges, including the additional 10 charges in Virginia that they still could have retried him on. Also, old Flippy had to forfeit $46 million worth of property. So now people can't even say that the Mueller investigation is a waste of money. It has actually turned a profit.
It's turned a profit.
It has turned a profit.
$46 million.
Thanks to old Flippy.
Old Flippy.
So Paul Manafort, Michelle, was inside the Trump Tower meeting in June of 2016.
Yes, he was.
When Donald Trump Jr., a.k.a. Fredo, hashtag Fredo, if I'm ever responding to Don Jr., which I do frequently, I say stuff like, Fredo, how's it going to be when you're in prison?
Oh, Fredo. What are you talking about this morning?
Sick burn, Fredo. Your sense of humor is gonna go over well when you're in prison.
That white tux is not going to do you any good, boo.
So Don Jr. is in this meeting. Jared Kushner is in this meeting.
Yes.
And they are told that this is part of the Russian government's ongoing campaign to help Donald Trump win the presidency. It's like it's all there. Like if you read these emails, and Manafort was in those meetings.
Yes,
Michelle,
he was.
what do you think? What do you think he has? Because obviously, Mueller has given him a pretty sweet deal.
Manafort has it.
What does he have?
He has it.
The collusion.
He has the collusion. But my question, you're asking me, what does he have? I mean, he has it. He knows it. He has it. There it is. Hand delivered. Stevie Wonder, signed, sealed, and delivered. And I just don't think that it's going to do anything.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So I want to give you this piece of news from an hour ago.
Uh-oh.
Hour ago.
Just an hour?
Yeah, just an hour.
Okay.
So
because Kavanaugh was just an hour ago.
Our favorite guy, Rudolph Giuliani,
oh, the Godfather,
has stated that he believes that Manafort will not indict Trump in any of his statements.
Yes, I'm sure.
In regards to any of these meetings.
Wow.
So the idea now, I think that we're starting to like move into like this one meeting is like the beginning of like this is the crux of his investigation on one level. He's found this one meeting and he knows that everybody was there, and now we're going to start poking holes at the idea that everybody was there. Here's my take. If anybody's ever had a corporate meeting, and we've all probably had corporate meetings sitting at this table,
yes,
there's moments when you have the big meeting where the person who's the person of interest, the most significant person of interest, will show up at a staggered portion of the meeting, as compared to the minions who
There's
start
the prep
meeting.
meeting, the prep meeting,
Right?
The pre-meeting meeting.
So here's my take on this situation. Jared and Don Jr. and Manafort started the meeting and actually talked about the issues of actual concern, and then Trump came in at the end to just make sure that everything was moving along and that he was just there to make sure that okay, we know what's going on, right?
Don Jr. or
no, Trump himself.
Trump.
You think he actually showed up at the meeting?
Absolutely.
I feel like he showed up at the end just to shake everybody's hand.
Steve Bannon did tell Michael Wolff, he said there's no way that Don Jr., and I think the quote was, didn't take those Jumos up to
Oh yeah, he was
Don Sr.
he was right there on the elevator. He
Right.
took him up, and Trump walks in probably like 45 minutes, an hour later, with a Diet Coke in his hand.
Right.
Y'all finished talking? Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Yeah.
Are we all set here? Great.
Yeah.
So
Bucket of chicken, bucket of chicken, bucket of chicken.
Yeah.
All right, three
Cool.
buckets of chicken.
So let's order up some chicken. Let's have a good time.
That's
Oh.
right.
Let's talk about going to Scores later. There we go.
Oh my Lord.
He loves his Kentucky Fried Chicken.
So here, my thought is that
Not Popeyes, KFC.
Manafort's not going to say anything that we don't already know. Here's again, for the 85th time, I'll say it over and over again, because it's the absolute truth.
But it's confirmation.
But it's confirmation. But if you break laws in full view of everyone, and you absolve yourself of any blame for breaking the law by clearly stating it and admitting your guilt.
And admitting also that you have found God.
Right,
That
exactly.
you have found the Lord, yes.
Yeah. Then ultimately,
Hallelujah.
right, then ultimately, Lord, then ultimately you're not guilty in the eyes of the public, which is the ultimate thing that he is attempting to do.
Yeah, well,
Gotcha.
his
Is that he
supporters-
is trying to gain guilt for ultimately Don Sr. at the end of the day in the eyes of public opinion. In the court of public opinion, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, has to be seen as being guilty. And the idea is that you're going to circle the wagons around Donald Trump, and you're going to say, there are 10 people who are guilty around this man. How is this man innocent?
Not guilty.
Like,
well, that's the
this
walls
doesn't
closing
make-
in.
That's the walls
Right.
That's the
closing
walls
in.
closing in. It starts with Papadopoulos
Right.
flipping, and then we get Gates flipping, then we get Flynn flips,
Right.
then we have Michael Cohen flips,
Right.
now we've got Manafort.
But the
the
thing
next
is,
one, who's the next flipper? Who's the next old flippy?
oh, Flippy, I don't know.
Old Flippy may be his own son.
Right.
What about
but-
Jared?
well,
I think they'll go after Junior before they go after Jared.
I think that the thing is, though, is that
I think Jared's
everybody
guiltier.
getting everybody in that room is obviously a necessary like concept that they've floated into the conversation. Like they're like, okay, we have to get everybody who is in that room. Everybody who is at that meeting has to be had. We have to have them. We have to have them guilty, dead to rights.
Yeah.
The only problem is that they got the low-hanging fruit. Like the really
Yeah.
low-hanging fruit. And it's amazing to believe that we're at a point in American politics, or just in American
But there's a
society.
lot of low-hanging fruit.
Right. But think about this. It's amazing that we're at a point in American society where there's a human being in America who owns $46 million worth of property.
and a bad ostrich. What was it? The ostrich.
Ostrich vest.
Right.
Ostrich
But
vest.
he owns $46 million worth of property,
Yeah.
and he has low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the totem pole of people that you need to take down. Say 20 years ago. The guy with $46 million worth of property, that's a pretty significant person.
Yes, it is.
We're dealing with a different level of criminality here.
I mean, if I
Clearly.
had $46 million worth of property,
You'd be like, I'm a big fish in the game of life. Clearly. Like I am like winning at the game of life. But this person is low-hanging fruit with nearly $50 million worth of property.
And we know how these investigations always go. You grab the low-hanging fruit, and you squeeze the low-hanging fruit, and
Right.
the next thing you know, the low-hanging fruit implicates the next guy up in the
Right.
chain.
And they're going to go.
And once you have taken all that low-hanging fruit, the rest of the fruit falls, and guess what? It's the low-hanging fruit. And then
You're right.
the fruit metaphor is maybe going a little too far.
No, but
you see
right.
how you build a federal case. Mueller is building this case very much like you would build a case if you were going to break up an organized crime ring.
Well, that's what
that is exactly how they are approaching this, and I'm not convinced that it's not warranted.
But I will tell you the one person that troubles me in the room now more so than ever before. It's Rudolph Giuliani being number 2.
But is he really?
I don't think he is.
No,
I
but
don't believe he is.
No, but of the people that are high enough profile that you want to get them, because again, this is all about the court of public opinion. This has nothing to do with like actual jurisprudence and actual like creation of a case. You're creating the case at the bottom so that people who read legal briefs can be fully aware. But you're ultimately doing this so that you could stand on top of that.
Yeah.
And go after the prime time. Evening news
Trust me what this says. Yeah.
Right.
You can believe me.
Yeah, you need 601 on the evening news. That's the person you're going after.
Who are you going to believe? Your lying eyes or me?
Right. And the one person in there that has the most to lose in this situation is Rudolph Giuliani, because he has 50 years of illicit activities that they will comb through to get him. And they're going to have to bring up every single one of them in conversation. That's the hardest part of this conversation. That's the hardest part of all of this, is that the second that you implicate Giuliani, you're going to be there for a while. Because you're going to go through all of his concrete dealings in the 80s. Then you're going to deal with, all of his, philandering in the 90s. Then you're going to deal with all of his horrible land deals in the 2000s when he, fell out of favor after, 9/11. It's like, okay, we're going to have to go through all these land dealings that were shady.
After he stopped being America's mayor.
Exactly.
After he was voted out as America's mayor.
Right. So 2007, Rudy, that guy definitely had an illicit land deal somewhere.
Yeah.
So then, by the time you get to hi, I'm Donald Trump's right-hand man.
Oh, Lord.
God.
You're
Well, he was crazy because he gave a speech. He was unhinged in his speech at the Republican convention in 2016. Remember, it's like we thought his teeth were going to fall out. Like all you saw was this bottom row of gigantic white teeth, and
it was a flipper.
And then his the rest of him looks like a skull with skin over it.
He's tried hard.
Listen, the Mueller investigation, I think it's always important to put these things in context. There's always so much noise, and it's by design. It's by design to confuse people. But I think this is one of these issues where it is important to separate out the signal from the noise, ignore the noise. There have been 187 charges brought by the special counsel against various individuals and companies, foreign and domestic. We have had 5 Trump aides plead guilty to federal felonies. And included in that is his one-time national security advisor and his one-time campaign chairman. So these are significant people that he's surrounded himself with who have, at best, questionable ethics.
I just want to interject something into the conversation. The Russian government may or may not have poisoned the guy from Pussy Riot.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that the second that this really starts to get serious, and we already have proof of collusion with the Russian government, these are people who are now poisoning people in real life.
Right. They've been poisoning.
But
the
this
Russians
is like,
have been, yeah.
But this is like a high level person that's like, you do that to put the warning, whistle out around the world. Listen, we are not playing games.
It's the damnedest thing how all of these opponents of Putin keep getting poisoned. What is in the water over there?
Right, but it's not even when it's over there, because we also have proof now that there were Russian operatives just walking around the streets of Washington, D.C.
They were
always have
getting
been.
an education in American university.
They always have been.
But especially now we have and they're not the square-shouldered, square-jawed, evil man with the crew cut from the James Bond movie. No, it's the lovely, lovely young lady who is in graduate school at American University.
It's the sexy Russian girl with the guns.
Right, exactly. that's where we are now. So
That is where we are. That is where we are.
There's a lot to consider. Like, if you want to go down this road, if they want to go down this road,
Well,
there's an end to this road that exists in the room now.
It's
and I'm
uncomfortable.
like, that's not okay.
No.
But this is the game that we play now.
Yeah. So separating out signal from noise, 187 charges, 5 Trump aides having pled guilty.
Mm-hmm.
The walls, I feel like, are closing in, and we're going to get to the truth. It feels like the story is written and that they're just looking for all of the multiple pieces of evidence to fit on every point of the story.
Do we get more before the election? Before November, how much more are we going to get? Or are they going to wait till after the election?
It's really hard to say. I am not and have never been a Department of Justice lawyer, so I'm familiar with some DOJ investigations through mostly civil cases, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows how they're going to treat this? This is all literally unprecedented. This is all literally unprecedented. I mean, I don't think that we had an investigation of Nixon, but I don't think it was this broad and wide ranging. Nixon was a smarter criminal.
But it's not even that Nixon was a smarter criminal. I also think that
he was.
But the Nixon investigation was a lot sexier, and that's a big problem with all of this to me as well. We have to bring it up because it's like the 800-pound gorilla in the corner of the room that nobody brings up because nobody here is actually physically attractive. It's like the president's not exactly like strikingly attractive by any stretch.
Speak for yourself, man.
No, but I'm just saying, it's okay. So the thing that made Watergate amazing was that, Woodward and Bernstein did a great job. We're in their building.
Yeah.
In the Post building. Woodward and Bernstein did an amazing job.
The house that Bob and Carl built.
Right. Turning turning Americana dipshittery into like a sexy, exciting subterfuge tale that interwove through millions of people. G. Gordon Liddy looks like G. Gordon Liddy. Like there's only one of him in the whole entire world.
Looks like a wrestler.
Right, exactly. He was at WrestleMania 2, curiously enough. Strangely. Who knew? But so
you knew.
I do.
You knew.
Of course. So in any event, of course I knew.
You were up late. You were up late watching it, weren't you?
These are things. But in any event,
it'll be in Medium tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m.
Whatever. Anyway, so the problem with the Trump the Trump situation is that it's like the least sexy, the least exciting bit of, political drama that has ever existed. It's significant.
It's trash.
But it's not there's no appeal to it to watch it unless you really like politics.
No.
There's no appeal to watching it on a day-by-day basis because there's not a single person in here that makes you stop again at 6:01 and say, "Okay, I was making dinner. I was helping little Johnny with math homework. I was about to go to the gym, but what is going on?"
No.
Zero of these people have any of that, except for when you get all the way up the train, up the ladder to Jared Kushner. The second you get to Jared, then it gets exciting, but you have a long way to build. So Manafort, even though he has $46 million worth of assets, crazy, is not the person yet where the people get excited. And I mean the average person, not people like the 4 of us in this room, but people who are the people who actually move the needle in the court of public opinion. So everybody on Black Twitter,
so
everybody on white Twitter, everybody on nerd Twitter, whatever.
So you think we don't have enough Q score with this?
Not at all.
With this
not even close yet.
All right. Well, that's where we're going to leave it.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to bring that up. It's an important part of the issue.
That is very, very important. Their Q scores. Brett Kavanaugh. Let's talk about this guy because obviously he was in the news a lot today.
As of an hour ago.
So over the weekend, a professor in California by the name of Christine Blasey Ford, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, she has accused Brett Kavanaugh of basically a sex assault when Brett Kavanaugh would have been 17 years old. Allegedly pinned her down, groped her, clumsily tried to remove her one-piece bathing suit, apparently turned up the music and kind of covered her mouth so that she wouldn't make complaints. This is obviously, I should point out, strenuously and vigorously denied by Judge Kavanaugh. He says that this is completely false. This never happened. This is a complete fabrication.
Lies.
It's all lies, lies from the pit of hell. So my question here, Marcus, is this the end of Brett Kavanaugh, Supreme
No, because
Court
everybody,
nominee?
all the Republicans in Congress had a similar tale happen when they were 17. This is the most like obvious moment when everybody looks at each other and they go,
Me too.
You're saying this is the rapiest party?
I'm just being honest. Like that's all I can say. Like, not that I have any proof here, but just the history.
You think Orrin Hatch is like there, but for the grace of God, go I?
He's just everybody there is like, wait, so really, the girl from like senior week is coming out and saying,
Yeah.
"Boo hoo, really." Really? Really? I mean, it's crazy because it's like now we're at a point with all of this where we're like at like bad Amazon Prime B movie level plot.
Well,
in all of this,
Black
I mean,
shampoo.
no, not even Black Shampoo, but like the Not Another Teen Movie Part 4.
updating because we're recording this on Monday.
Yeah.
A week from today on Monday,
Yes.
there is going to be live under oath testimony by Brett Kavanaugh and Professor Blasey Ford.
Because, you know,
So-
Anita Hill did well for ratings. Let's do Anita Hill again.
That's what they're going for the ratings.
it's Anita Hill. Like that's
I have no commentary this evening. I'm just sitting back listening to
It's-
these two guys.
it's Anita Hill. And it's like, and the thing about Anita Hill is that Anita Hill was like, she was correct to make her assertion. She was
Yes.
well within her like
Yeah.
rights to say what she said.
Right.
all of it.
And
All of it.
and her testimony like actually impacted the progression of American history.
Hmm.
Yes.
This is not that.
No.
Because Kavanaugh is obviously the wrong guy. Like, at least with Clarence Thomas, you kind of thought he may not be the right guy, but there's enough of like, you know, he was an African-American judge. So you're like, okay, we have to have a black judge somewhere on the court. So there's some level of like, wow, Thurgood Marshallism to it. Like, we're going to, you know, put another black judge on the court. This is important. This is a
Did you-
striving moment for black history.
Did you just go Clarence Thomas, Thurgood Marshall?
I did because there was a segment of the population that believed this. If you were in DC public schools when I was in DC public schools, so you know this was a thing that was taught in the curriculum.
Yes.
That he's an important black character in history.
Yes.
You know, Brett Kavanaugh, not that guy.
A fool of a character.
Literally not that guy. Like the complete polar opposite of that guy. The guy was like dead to rights from second one.
See, but the Clarence Thomas analogy is why I think at the end of this, the end game is going to be Brett Kavanaugh putting his hand on the Bible and being sworn in as an
110%.
associate justice of the United States Supreme Court. Because I think he looks at this right now and he's thinking to himself, just survive. Just survive. He's thinking to himself, you know, Clarence Thomas back in 92 had himself probably the 2 worst weeks of his life, and he has spent the rest of his days as a Supreme Court justice.
But I think
And so I think Brett Kavanaugh is thinking to himself, I'm going to show up. I'm going to be respectful of this woman. I'm going to say I don't understand why, because that is not my recollection at all. I never would have forced myself on someone like that. If I was too forward and too aggressive with her, I do apologize, but I do not believe that it rose. This is what he's going to say,
Of
and then you know he's going to get yelled at by the Democratic senators. He's going to be coddled by the Republican
Kamala's
senators.
going to walk out of this. She's going to walk out of chambers.
And you know,
She and
and then at the end of the day, they're going to
think-
vote, and it's going to be a party line vote, 11-10, in the Judiciary Committee to take him to the floor. And for all the talk of Susan Collins and Jeff Flake and Bob Corker, I do believe once he makes it to the floor of the Senate, after having properly atoned, this is Yom Kippur now, so I mean we're in the atone zone.
The atone zone. The atone zone.
Hold on a second, I got to give credit to that. That was John Lovett from Love It and Leave It, Love It or Leave It.
Oh, that's
Love it or
great.
leave
But
it.
I love it. The atone
Love it.
zone.
Love it or leave it.
But
Love it or leave it.
I
Good.
feel
Good podcast.
I feel like
Funny.
it's
Funny politics.
yeah, it's just so like ridiculous because now you're setting up the Supreme Court like the axis of evil. Like anytime that anything goes towards the Supreme Court, the one thing that this will effectively do if Kavanaugh is confirmed is that if any case goes anywhere near the Supreme Court, you're like death-defyingly afraid of what's going to happen. If it's like any sort of liberal issue, you're like, oh, not the Supreme Court, which is exactly what.
You're not even afraid because fear suggests some level of uncertainty. Like there's going to be very definite certainty over what will happen at the Supreme Court to the various issues that liberals care about. And that can be an issue. Listen, we're all deep in the shit right now, but, it could be, last I saw, we had Democrats on the generic ballot had a 14-point lead. I mean, this could be a situation like 2006 where just the anger at Republicans washes them out, and Democrats could end up with the House and the Senate, and then in 2020, maybe we've got a president who is still under a cloud of criminality. Maybe we have actual criminality, but just the impeachment hasn't gone anywhere. You could find yourselves as Democrats in 2 years having completely flipped everything.
Right. But who do the Democrats run? This is the question of the day. Again, who do they run?
I'm just saying. If you look at fundamentals, you can make out a very plausible case that we're sitting here in 2 years with a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic president. I'm not saying by any stretch that it's guaranteed, but there's a plausible case to be made. But you could find yourself in that situation. You could decide, hey, this is our moment. Medicare for all, free public college education, anything on the far left liberal flank, and you're going to have popular support. You're going to have popular elections. Popularly elected leaders who are going to push this. They're going to, it's going to pass the House, it's going to pass the Senate, it's going to get signed by the president, and then it's going to be 5-4 majority overturning is unconstitutional on some specious bullshit grounds. All 5 conservatives against 4 liberals. 4 of the 5 conservatives will have been appointed by presidents who did not win in their first term, even the popular vote.
Right.
So it's you. Ultimately, in any kind of a republic or a democracy, you want to have a representative government. And right now, I feel like we have kind of like a minority rule government, which is, I'm hoping we have the opportunity this year to begin to dismantle that, because that has had a lot of pejorative effects on the country. But, you could find yourself in a situation where you have popular support from a popularly elected government for popular programs that get shot down at the Supreme Court level. And what's happening now is a really big deal in that. But I do believe that this isn't going to result in the end of Brett Kavanaugh, Supreme Court justice nominee, because I think he's just going to follow the Clarence Thomas model. I think he's going to, maybe without using the phrase high-tech lynching.
He'll just say lynching.
Just plain lynching.
Just lynching, and then everybody.
There's a bunch of guys on horseback out back waiting for me.
Black guys on horseback.
Oh my. So all right, that's our man Brett Kavanaugh.
But my question, I just want to ask a quick question.
Yeah, please do.
So how then, if you're going to get people to rush to the polls in 2018, 2020, how then does the Democratic Party create a unified, even remotely, minimally unified party line to be able to push through the Democratic agenda, if there is such a thing anymore, in 2018 and 2020? Because that's my thing now, because I see these 2 separate sects developing and running concurrent to each other. And with no notion, because I still get Democratic Party emails. I bought my mom an Obama t-shirt in 2008.
Oh my goodness, that's so cute.
I still get emails from the party. So they haven't had that,
even though you hit unscribe.
Yeah, no, they still it's
still floating somehow.
Who knew? But there's no conversation about like, hey, these hyper progressives over here are like winning. Let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about these hardliners, these hardline, like, by the book, like classic Democrats. Let's talk about these guys. Let's not talk about the people that actually are like winning things, because I feel like even all of the black women that are winning, shout out to black women winning elections,
Black girl
are
magic.
all like on that far progressive side. Like Kamala's left there now,
Yeah.
holding down the fort, but everybody else is like out here.
I think we're in a populist moment. I think that I say this as a U.S. history major. Nothing that is happening right now is unprecedented. I mean, if you think about where we are, we've had a huge crash. We've, this is an economy in transition. It's, when I was growing up in the 80s, this was very much a manufacturing economy.
Oh, yeah.
And now it is not. There is little place in this country for unskilled, uneducated labor, and we don't have yet the education system to adequately get all of these people.
That falls really nicely into the conversation if we're talking about the economy next.
Yeah.
That's like super. That's like a perfect segue.
Well, I think we should segue into the economy. This is something I wanted to get into a little bit of a deep dive, as deep as we can get in, 15, 20 minutes or so. But
we can do it.
The economy, we keep hearing that this is a great economy. Republicans are going to be, their incumbency is going to be preserved on the backs of a strong economy, that everybody's happy. The American experiment is working just fine, thank you. And, everything is good, nothing to see here. I kind of see the economy a little bit different. And I think that, I believe it was Karl Rove who always talked about using the Sun Tzu tactic of going at your opponent's strength.
Yeah.
And I think it would behoove Democrats to really argue, especially in places areas of the country that feel economically left behind. I feel like it's a very powerful message to get out there and to be populist in this moment and say, yeah, there's no doubt, this culture, this society, this economy, this government, everything has passed you by. Everything has passed you by without making sure to see that you were okay in this transition. Because there are always people who fall through the cracks when you have an economy in transition. When we transitioned to a manufacturing economy at the start of the 20th century, people who shoed horses, suddenly found themselves having a tough time earning a living when there's Model Ts rolling down the street.
Yep.
Right.
And what can you do? You can make sure that an individual has opportunities for housing, has opportunities to retrain and get into, one of these great factory jobs at the Ford Motor Company where you work 80 hours a week and breathe smut all day. But anyway.
Smut?
Smut?
You mean soot?
What type of...
They breathe smut?
It's a cross between smut and soot.
Never heard of smut before. Is that
Smut.
Is that a new caviar? Smut from Russia?
Smut, yes.
Oh, if you...
Oh, but no.
It's been a long day, folks.
Related to that point,
It's been a long day.
Time put out this Times cover this week.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
Several covers.
They put out several covers of teachers who can't make ends meet. Teachers
Yeah.
who are working 3 jobs, literally 3 jobs. Teachers who sell plasma to make ends meet.
Yeah.
These are professionals with college educations.
Yep. Certificates.
Some oftentimes master's degrees.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They are in charge of our children's growth and development, and our children are the future of our economy. They're the ones who should be sustaining the economy in our retirement years when, when we're going to need help from the government, because,
Because
it's screwed up right now.
Yeah. And I was actually reading back in August, Forbes did an article called "America's Real Economy It Isn't Booming," and it's just some of the statistics to put this all into context. 43 million Americans working who are under the poverty level.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the working poor, and we've now kind of invented a new classification, which is the working homeless, and that's really remarkable. 2/3 of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. 1/3 of Americans have zero savings. A third of all workers in this country earn less than $12 an hour. 42% of all workers, all wage earners in this country, earn less than $15 an hour. 40 hours a week, 50 hours, I believe that comes out to about 32 grand, 31 grand, so, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
We have inflation that is eroding purchasing power. Healthcare alone is up 20% year over year. Credit card debt is at over $1 trillion, increases at about 5% annually. Student loan debt, $1.5 trillion. A lot of reasons why that is. Where are we headed? What kind of economy are we building? Because I'm sure for certain people they see this as an endpoint,
Right.
but I think we have to see this always as a project under construction. We're clearly an economy still in transition away from manufacturing and unskilled labor to an information economy, but have we built up the educational infrastructure to man that economy going forward?
No.
I'm close.
So
No.
where is this all headed? Because what we're seeing is increased stratification and increased hollowing out of the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did a deep dive about this during the
This is our favorite conversation. Maybe we should just call the show Deep Dive.
yeah
What is
during
it called?
the
I don't know about that.
during the during the
Just
during the
sounds-
Trump during the Trump
sounds
during
dirty.
the Trump campaign, when I realized, and this is another one of these times where like knowing that Trump was going to win, like everything that I wrote for like a solid year was like based around the fact that like I wanted to prepare everybody for like what was going to happen, because I had a very clear vision. Because I'm like, okay, he's going to win.
How many
So-
people believed you?
Oh, like less than 5. Like actually less than 5, not 5%, but like less than 5 people in the world.
Yeah.
So Trump's notion is that if you cannibalize the middle class, which is like 60%
Mhm.
of the wage earners in the country, then you have the bottom 20 and the top 20 carrying the weight,
Mhm.
because you can employ the bottom 20
Yes.
and give them all $1. Or
One-
whatever the equivalent of $1 is.
one
Give
single
them
little dollar.
$45,000, whatever it is.
Pennies on the dollar.
Right, pennies on the dollar.
dollar.
And it's more than the abject poverty they were living in. That's
Right.
largely large. You can literally look at a physical map of the United States, and you can like take a big circle around parts of the country, like the middle of the country. Boom.
I mean, that's the theory of a global labor market, which is that instead of paying people $32 an hour with health benefits and 4 weeks off for vacation, I can move my factory to Mexico and pay
Right.
these guys $3 an hour.
But here's the crazy part about all of this that fascinates me. It's our hatred of China.
Mm-hmm.
Because China's largely done the same thing. But the thing that the Chinese gambled on, that I don't think that America understands how to gamble on, because we have never experienced like the kind of communist poverty that China went through
Mhm.
for large centuries of their history.
Yeah, the
is
worst for
that-
the United States was the Dust Bowl era,
Right.
Right.
So the
which was
idea
bad. But
So the idea in doing this and cannibalizing the middle class is that you squeeze the middle class so hard that you ultimately are empowering middle class people to grab for the brass ring and attempt to leap out of the middle class into the upper class.
Hmm.
Which, given that America's history involves systematic racism,
Yes.
systematic classism,
Yes.
systematic sexism,
Very much so.
and numerous other ways of stratifying people, and and large parts of our country are like broken up into various different ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds. It's impossible, like actually impossible, for certain parts of for certain large parts of American culture to actually make that jump. So getting to the middle class used to be the thing. So for 30, 40 years, I'd say.
I mean, it's the focus on our
Right.
own city right now. The focus is the middle class.
Right, but even in that's tricky, because we used to say just getting to the point where you could afford rent for a 1-bedroom apartment was the
Right.
goal. Like, we're going to get a whole bunch of wage earning professional employees who are information based in a lot of cases to get to the point where they could afford rent
Yes.
Reasonable rent.
A
For a
one-bedroom.
one-bedroom apartment.
$1,250.
That was like that was a lot of what Marion Barry did in the 70s. Was I'm going to get people up to this point. We never gave anybody. We didn't give everybody the wide funnel vision of like making it past that point. We left a lot of people there, and we still like ascribe to them the notion that you're middle class, you are okay. Mm-hmm. Except for when now Trump comes along and starts squeezing, because we've had presidents that have tried to squeeze before, but we stopped them after 4 years or after 8 years because you have to roll back restrictions, or someone just gets elected and just cuts entire policies out of out of existence. Mm-hmm. So now we're at a point where Trump's come in, and we've never had anybody so radically squeeze the middle class within his first 500 days as Donald Trump. He's literally placed tariffs on goods and services that people in this economic sector actually need.
Yeah,
are either purchasing or are sectors and industries that they work in.
Right. So there's so it's like you do this thing.
You're helping the steel industry, but then tariffs are gonna fuck over the soybean industry.
Ultimately, he's like, okay, I'm going to squeeze this.
Robbing from Peter to pay Paul.
Right. He's like, I'm going to squeeze this thing because ultimately he thinks if he could squeeze hard enough, that he could squeeze out the money that will save our $20 trillion debt. Well, he could start to pay that down by squeeze hard enough, the money falls out of the bottom.
Right. But I think not to give Donald Trump credit certainly here, but these are issues I think that are bigger than any one administration.
But it's an accumulation, so he's trying to stop it.
This is an accumulation for sure, and I do believe he's accelerating things. But this is a continuation of trends that we saw through the Obama years, through the Clinton years, of continued erosion of middle-class work in this country. And you know what? Honestly, there may be some long-term economic, macroeconomic benefit to it when we look back in 30 years to realize, having gone through that transition, that we came out on the other side better. We certainly came out on the other side better of the transition from sort of like the local agrarian economies of the 19th century into the industrial behemoth that we became in the 20th century. That certainly helped us win World War II. That helped us attain a level of power and leadership in the global community, economically, politically, ideologically. Our commitment to freedom and democracy is something that we have tried with varying levels of success, but have tried to export around the world. I'm not trying to come off like Donald Rumsfeld or anything that, but
no, I mean,
but it's there is a story, and there's also a story to be told, I believe, about the benefits that global capitalism have brought to other countries. We have functionally eradicated extreme poverty on a global level. I mean, I think we're down.
Europe would beg to differ right now.
I'm talking extreme poverty. I'm talking like
no, but still,
I'm talking like people living on a bowl of rice a day, which for most of human history, probably for a good chunk of human history, probably half of human beings.
If hard Brexit goes through,
I don't think there's going to be the extreme poverty.
If hard Brexit goes through,
I don't think we're going to see British kids sitting on the corner with bowls of rice and flies flying around them.
Ian, I'm giving you the side eye because I can also tell you that in Germany the same thing will happen, and that in Greece it's already happening.
There's problems. There's problems for sure. There's problems. For sure, there's problems in Europe, but I don't think that we're going to see levels of extreme poverty. The extreme poverty that I'm talking about that has been eradicated or greatly diminished by the rise of global capitalism. Yes, you go from paying someone $30 an hour in the United States to paying someone $3 an hour in Mexico. That seems like it should be a no-brainer for the business, but at the same time, you're also that $3 an hour for the Mexican person is a step up, an improvement. It helps to build a community. It helps to build a middle class. That's how you build a middle class. And then they agitate for better wages, and then the company moves over to Thailand.
But here's the trick, though. The trick is that tariffs are now a thing.
Yeah.
Because Donald Trump reintroduced tariffs
Right.
it's 1794.
Nobody knew
He's
what
a wartime president.
Yeah.
No, the Revolutionary War.
He's a wartime president.
Not and I have World War II, but he's like the Revolutionary War. He's like, like the Tea Party could happen tomorrow. And it
These
wouldn't be
Canadians and their steel,
Yes. Bad.
we will fight them in the courts of international trade.
surprising. Right. But I feel like we
will fight them at the border.
The fascinating part for me as well, and it's not a thing that enough people talk about, is that the real thing that happens when you actually are shutting down the middle class is that you're placing like the digital age, like the internet, which for 25 years controlled all of us.
Yes.
Literally drove the engine of modernization of American economics and American industry. The first thing that happens when you squeeze the middle class, because none of these entrepreneurs are actually making money yet. We sit in a building where everybody in here is trying to turn a profit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The second that you squeeze them, and you take away earning potential from these widgets and doodads that everybody here is trying to make, is that the internet ceases to exist as a thing that actually matters. I can say this as somebody who I am a writer who writes on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, you could pay me $1,000 to write one piece, and this is an extravagant thing for me. I'm 40 years old, so I understand an era where paying you $1,000 to sit and type words on a keyboard is a goofy thing to do. Now, if you look at the digital age, you look at the number of sites that are even around to write words on, they've dropped precipitously. And the amount of money, and anybody who's a digital first creative will tell you this, the amount of money to write these words on the internet is been cut by 4/5.
Mm-hmm.
So if freestyle will cost $100, they'll put it out there and say, hey, you want $200 to write this?
Mm-hmm.
And you end up having to work 5 times as hard.
For $200.
Literally 5 times as hard. You're okay, well, I'm gonna have to write 5 of those pieces and ultimately make the same amount of money.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you squeeze the middle class. When
it becomes the gig economy.
Right. And even the gig economy.
Everyone is getting what they can get,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody has that one sort of anchor job that gives them their benefits, their paid vacation,
but the problem,
all of those things.
The problem there even deeper.
All of those things that get guaranteed to people in various other countries.
The problem with that is in a country where racism, sexism, gentrification, all these things, classism are all ingrained into the society, is that when you look at the people who are the haves on the very top, who are literally pulling people out of the jaws of life, as I like to say, that are squeezing the economy. They're plucking people out. They only pluck out the people that look like them.
Yeah.
Or have progeny who are, historically, relatives that are as rich as they are. Or have people who could possibly sell themselves out and be willing to be kind of sort of part of the ruling class. And that's where we are. And that's the frustration of it. It's when you watch this happen, you're like, wait, so this is really what we're doing? And then at the worst part of it, at the end of the day, because this hasn't happened yet, but it will start to happen when we start to bring industry, classic industry back into America, is when you take the person who's at the very bottom, who you gave $1 to, and then you give $10, and then you give $100, and then you make a millionaire out of somebody who had $0 in 2016. And you're going to start to see these things happen, because you're going to start to see people get empowered when you start to bring back the auto industry, because Donald Trump says that Ford can make cars.
Yeah,
again,
make them here.
Yes, they can make them here, and Ford's we can't. But Trump's gonna damn sure try.
Or why doesn't Apple make their iPhones here? Well,
right,
because nobody will pay $10,000 for an iPhone.
In order to make that happen, Donald Trump will find a way, and that administration will find a way to find people at the bottom and shoot them over the middle class, as if they're in a cannon with a helmet on their heads, being shot over the middle class into wealth. It's gonna be very Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh my God!
So I hope people are aware, and I hope people are not weirded out when you're looking around at 2020 or 2021 at the procession after the election, and there's Jed Clampett walking down the street.
Well, let's talk about the other side of that squeeze, because you're squeezing up, but I think probably for every up that's squeezed, there's going to be some exponential amount squeezed
Squeezing
down.
down.
So Michelle, let me give you a little bit of data from this Forbes article here.
Thank
I
you.
love the fact that you brought up this Forbes article because it's a great article.
It's a great article, and I did I get it from you? Did you post
I
it, or
think
did you get
I
it?
feel like you did. Yeah, no, I think I did. I know
Probably
I did,
did.
actually.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
It's a great read.
We just piggyback on each other's
We do.
posts.
We definitely do. We
Just
definitely
hanging
do.
out on the internet.
So from this article, about 12% of Americans, 43 million, are considered poor, and yet they are employed.
Mm-hmm.
They can earn an individual income below $12,140 per year, and slightly more than that for a family of two. If you include housing and medical expenses in the calculation, it raises the percentage of Americans living in poverty to 14%. That's Americans employed living
Yes.
in poverty.
Yes.
14%. That's 45 million people. And that is why, actually, I think that there is a message
And that's 2
for the
million
Democrats.
people. That's 2 million people. That's 2 million people being shit out of that 60%
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Just-
And that's this is why I do believe that there is a message for the Democratic Party in 2018 to really go at what the Republicans see as their own strength, which is the economy, and to hit this at this level of income. This article says there is almost no way to pay for food and shelter in any sizable American city. Didn't we just have a study that came out that nobody making minimum? There's no place in America where you can pay rent on a 2-bedroom place on minimum wage.
No.
Yeah.
No. Like nowhere.
I mean,
Like
and
nowhere. You.
also like
We always say it here. You know, people will be like, "Oh, you move out to PG County, it's cheaper, or move over here, it's cheaper
For a year or two.
For a year or two, it may be cheaper,
You
and
know
then
the cheapest suburb of Washington D.C.
It's not Southeast DC.
No, I'm gonna you're gonna blow your mind with this.
It's not PG.
No.
Keep going.
Keep going.
And because oh my
Montgomery?
gosh,
Keep going.
no,
Keep
no,
going.
you know where he's going
Keep
with
going.
this.
Charlestown.
County.
No, Charlestown.
I don't
West
consider Charles
Virginia.
County.
Charlestown, West Virginia. I thought we
Charlestown,
were going with Charles.
West.
I don't consider that
Virginia.
a suburb of D.C.
There
Well,
are people who work in
it
the
can
D.C.
take-
government
Yeah.
who drive in
What
from
is-
Charlestown,
It's an hour.
West
and,
Virginia. It's like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's no time. And they come in, so they
Yeah,
leave.
but they come in from Annapolis. I used to know people who
Yeah,
come in
But
from
Annapolis,
Annapolis
that's when
into
you're like a
DC.
GS 74.
Yeah.
And you know,
How much does a GS74 make?
105.
you know,
Anybody know?
just pointing
Okay.
that out. But like, if you're like, you
of course,
know,
there's people in DC government. They leave their house at 5:30 in the morning. They get to work by 6:30, 7:15, and they do their time and they say nothing.
because flex hours are a thing now in DC, and also the federal government is based in DC.
Right. Just
You
as
could-
long as you're clicking on a keyboard.
You could do flex hours and get into 7:15 and leave out enough time to beat the rush hour traffic
Right.
going home to Charlestown, West Virginia.
Charlestown, West
So
Virginia.
this is what's happening to America's working poor. They're being gentrified out into separate states.
No, literally separate states.
Yes.
And then they have to drive in, and this is why
Yes.
teachers have to
There are people.
sell their plasma.
Yes.
I know people that I grew up with in far
Trying
northeast
to bring it back
DC,
down here.
Far northeast.
far northeast DC,
Mm-hmm.
who now live in Kaiser, West Virginia.
No, thank you. I'm going to stay right over.
Yeah.
Namaste. Northeast.
Kaiser, West Virginia
Namaste, Northeast.
is the cheapest place they could go
Northeast.
because to get the amount of bang for the buck that they need. Like
T-shirts coming
it's a
soon.
guy who has 2 kids, wife. They're both working, by the way. Both working. And they wanted to afford a home with 2 bedrooms. Also with a sizable backyard because they happen to raise athletes. You know, these kids are super athletic. So one of them plays baseball, the other one's a basketball player. So they want them to be...
As someone who was raised an elite athlete, I understand.
Right, so they need like a backyard for their children who are athletes to run around and play and do what they do. So they're like pricing homes, and they priced homes and went, well, maybe we could go to Frederick. No, can't go to Frederick.
Can't afford Frederick.
Right, let's go to like...
Fred Rock.
That's
Right.
way too much traffic.
Right, and then it's
Anybody that
like-
even thinks about moving to Frederick, like why?
And then you're thinking like maybe go over the line into Pennsylvania.
I used to play go-go in Fred Rock.
Yeah, I call it Fred Neck myself.
ICC for life.
So you go up to like...
I call it ain't nothing out there for me.
So maybe you go over to like
ICC.
Pennsylvania. And then in their mind, they're like,
Somebody get Ian.
northern, like southern Pennsylvania just seemed a bridge too far. It's like if you work in D.C., the idea that you live just over the line in
Pennsylvania,
southern Pennsylvania,
Or Delaware.
Delaware.
Yeah, Delaware.
Seems like a bridge too far.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so let's move west. And then they found Kaiser, West Virginia.
I don't even want to live in a town called Kaiser, West Virginia.
Kaiser, West Virginia.
These
That's
are the
where they
global. These are the global wages of gentrification.
Who lives there? Jason, Freddie, or Michael Myers?
All three. All three.
The Blair Witch.
Oh, so you really know I'm not going there.
The Blair Witch. All right. Let's move on. Let's move on a little bit.
I think that was a great discussion. People understood that. Like that's where we are.
That's a great discussion, and that is where we are. That is where we are. It's certainly, and it by no means is it exclusive to the D.C. metropolitan region.
I'll just put it out that the Denny's in Kaiser, West Virginia is lit.
Whatever. The Denny's on Bladensburg Road is lit.
Denny's. Oh, it really is. Fine dining.
Fine dining. Get you a stack.
Moon's over my hammy.
It's real.
Moon's over my hammy.
All right, guys. It's that time of week.
We're pitiful.
Keep it extra real.
It is that time of the week.
Bish.
Where we bish. This is the Bish Sesh.
Yep.
And typically what we do, assuming that we all have one.
I got one.
I got one.
All right, we all have one. So we're going to give a 30-second elevator pitch on our Bish, and we're going to all decide which is the Bish that we want to talk about. So Marcus, kick us off. 30 seconds on the clock, and go.
The Washington Redskins professional football team. They pay money for Alex Smith. They go down to Tampa Bay, and they lose to the Buccaneers. And as well, the big thing that happened.
Oh, they
I
lost
thought-
to the
I
Colts
thought
yesterday.
the
The Colts.
Colts.
Okay, it was the Colts.
The
Okay.
Colts.
At home, the home
Yeah,
opener.
right, okay.
Colts.
So it's the Colts, okay.
Which was
So-
not a sellout.
Right, that was the point. The
20
biggest point of this whole thing was that it wasn't a sellout.
20,000 empty.
Is that the Washington Redskins professional football team for my entire life could be ass terrible, but you knew that the stadium would be sold out. That was the biggest selling point of the franchise. If there's any notion that tells you that something is dreadfully wrong about the progression of New DC, the Redskins cannot sell out their home games. This is the point where you go, oh wait, something is completely off track here. Completely off track.
Okay, all right. So that's your Bish, and that's a good one. There's a lot to say. There's a lot to unpack there. A lot to unpack. Michelle, lay it on me. What's your Bish? Is it about the CBC?
It is not about the CBC.
Damn.
I am keeping it with the NFL.
Oh my.
National football. Oh, my man's in them?
Oh my.
My man's in them?
My man's in them.
Yes.
So
Tell it.
I am going to, my Bish is about the negative comments that everybody has been laying down in regards to Vontae Davis and his retirement from the NFL.
At halftime.
At halftime.
Because if you're going to retire.
Why not do it at halftime? But I've just read.
Why go through the effort of getting dressed and stretching before the game?
You know, that anything.
It's Saturday night.
Yeah. You know.
Coach, I'm not going to be there tomorrow.
I'm not going to be there tomorrow. But I mean, I get it. It's something to talk about, and it kind of made you say, wait a minute, you said what? At halftime? But it was the comments that came after it. It's like, are you on that field? Are you living his life? Are you how can you come and say what he did was wrong and then release a statement like, look, this is how I feel.
Amen.
And so it's just, you know, it just goes to show and proves more of the reason why I will continue to protest the NFL.
Yeah.
It's just
that's a good one.
it's
Okay.
the
That's a
mockery
good
of the bullshit.
That's a good one.
You know, it's just
My Bish is one that's it comes a little late, but we couldn't do it last week because the dipshittery had not yet occurred.
Yeah.
And the dipshittery that I'm talking about is President Trump's tweets about Puerto Rico last week, which were pure dipshittery, but more than that, like really insulting. You know, I mean, for me, the son of a proud New Yorican, I spent a lot of time on that island. Like that is, you know, that island is a part of my soul,
Right.
and I feel very personally everything that that people on the island, people formerly on the island, had to go through. And I don't think that there's any question that you can look at 3,000 people dead and say that this was an adequate federal response. I mean, 3,000 is about how many died during Katrina in New Orleans.
Yes.
And we sort of we took that as sort of a never again moment, and yeah, look, I'm sure that they're going to do a great job cleaning up North Carolina. It's on the mainland, and there's not as many brown people as there are in Puerto Rico, but I mean, just to get a little bit of background, he actually tweeted that the 3,000 dead as a result of the hurricane was a fabrication made up by the Democrats to make him look bad.
Right.
So, yeah.
He's just.
I mean, I think we should go in on that.
So here's our rule. Here's our rule. We all vote, but you can't vote for your own.
I don't even think we have to vote. I think
We don't have to vote.
that's the one.
For Puerto Rico?
Yeah. So
I was gonna vote for bitching about the Redskins.
no, we could, but no, this Puerto Rico thing is real.
That's a whole show, and we need to bring Mike on because he's a
So-
49ers fan. So
So
At least it's not the Cowboys.
no Cowboys fans are ever allowed on this show.
No Cowboy fan
ever
sits in this
allowed
seat
on this show.
so the idea
unless we give them a dispensation.
that Trump would do that
You got to be exceptional Cowboy fan.
No.
it's okay. So the idea that Trump would even say this.
But we knew he would say
As
something.
Well,
as
we
Hurricane
reached-
Florence is bearing
No,
on
but
North Carolina.
So this is the next new low that we've reached.
Yeah, really
because
is.
it's
Really it is.
okay. So Trump's game plan here is obvious now.
Mm-hmm.
When you can ostracize people who stereotypically and historically have been ostracized,
Mm-hmm.
given the nature of his base, ostracize them at all costs, just to make sure that your base feels comfortable with the progression of the country. That's the cold, hard reality of it. That doesn't mean that it's right. Obviously, doesn't mean that it's right.
Right.
It's absolutely wrong. But given that this man was elected with that base, and no matter who runs in 2020, that base is still at play.
Mm-hmm.
And he can shift that base wherever he wants to put them. So he has to keep them enraptured. And the easiest way to keep these people enraptured is to say the worst thing. Because that's all they respond to. He's come to realize this now. If you say the worst, most stereotypical, most generic, horrifying, terrible thing,
He's president.
those people respond.
He's President Sick Burn on Twitter, and
Yeah.
but it's just it again. You're sort of just struck with vacillating between just being dumbfounded at how ignorant and stupid he sounds, and then just being just flabbergasted at how
I have a question.
narcissistic and racist he is, and it's just and this Puerto Rico issue kind of brings it all together because if you have
the black folks on Kaepernick, okay?
if you have he's got the black folks on Kaepernick and he's got the Puerto Ricans on
got us dead to rights on Kaepernick.
If you
Bam.
When you have people die in a storm, to a certain extent, that's an act of God. Maybe you can say you should have gotten these people out, whatever. But when people die because of neglect after the storm,
Correct.
That's a completely separate issue, a completely separate issue. And for him to sit here and make this about himself when 3,000 Americans died. 3,000 Americans. A little over 3,000 Americans died on 9/11. We're 18 years later. We're still at war in Afghanistan.
Right.
3,000 Americans. That's supposed to push some action.
Yeah. Well,
we've not had a hearing in Congress.
That's my question.
Nobody cares.
That's my question. Why have we not had a hearing? It's because of who our president is.
It's because of who is in Congress
But it's
and
also,
who enables him.
But it's also the fact that if you look at these people who actually control the country, and that's his base, they control the whole thing. It's minority-led,
minority
regime
rule.
that you.
Yeah.
And it's
Because
regime.
every Republican is held in sway to them.
Right. So think about it like
It's held
this.
hostage by them.
And this is not in any way to denigrate anyone who voted for Donald Trump. And I'm just saying that as a disclaimer. how many of these people actually know that Puerto Rico is in American territory?
They don't. They don't. I don't even know why you would ask
Like,
that
no,
question.
it's and that's the sad, honest, brutal, like punch in the gut
They don't
truth
know.
of it. Because they're brown and because they're not in the contiguous 48 states. These people don't even think Alaska
And
is
because
probably
they speak
a state.
Spanish.
And they speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang.
It's Caribbean.
You can put them in a corner
Yeah.
Until Bad Bunny sings his little song on stage.
Wow.
Otherwise,
Oh my.
they don't exist.
Not the Moo song.
Doja Cat's South African. Doesn't matter. But whatever. Jesus Christ. But no, moo, whatever. So in any event, that's the thing. It's like when Bad Bunny sings the song, Puerto Rico exists. Because he's a charlatan and a fun little plaything. Oh, he has
Bad Bunny.
yellow hair and yellow fingernails and sings the song. And hey! And Cardi B's from the Dominican Republic. Hey!
Oh my God.
But otherwise, these places don't exist. Because they're
Cardi?
not contiguously here.
Cardi, Nikki, don't touch the face. No touching the face.
Yeah.
We are not discussing
Observe the
Cardi.
rules of engagement.
Right, but that's
or
the whole...
Nikki
but
tonight.
that's-
Nobody touches the face.
But that's the sad reality of this situation.
Yeah.
That's the sad, brutalist reality of this situation.
No doubt.
Is that when you have the base being so ignorant, or not even ignorant, but gleeful in their ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's different than just being like ignorant. Like if you're just abjectly unaware and uneducated, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But there's another thing in being smart enough to know, but enjoying the fact that you don't have to know anything. For like,
It's liberating.
right, it's liberating. It's like, oh, we can just be fucking stupid for 4 years and just
It's very liberating.
turn up and do shit, as my mom said recently.
Very
Your
liberating.
mother said turn up and do shit?
Yeah, we were talking about
Oh my
where
God.
we're going with this country, and she stopped, and because she lives next door to some cool hip college girls, so she was like, "Yeah, you know what we're doing in the country right now? We're just turning up and doing shit."
There it is.
And I was like, "Wow, you may have just
Named
said
our-
everything."
You may have just named our show.
Yeah, turn up and do shit.
Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Mom.
That's
Thank you,
Panetta.
Muhammad Ali. All right. This then
No.
ends the Bish Sesh, but we go on to
I was like, what? We're
No.
ending? What?
Oh no.
What?
Oh no, we have the best story of all time.
my favorite
Talk about.
my favorite thing. I have my favorite thing of the week. Do you guys have a favorite thing of the week?
Oh,
I-
I do.
I do.
I'm gonna. You go first. 'cause
All
I have to
right,
pull it up.
Michelle.
Okay, so
Your favorite thing?
I finally got my phone back. Well,
Yes.
not my phone back. I got a new phone
Yes.
on Friday. So again, don't steal my phone. Okay, thanks.
Is that like one that don't touch my hair?
Yeah, don't
PSA: Do not steal Michelle's
don't,
phone,
don't
please.
steal my damn phone. Okay, Apple will reject you from trying to turn it on. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so as I was trying to get all my social media accounts back onto my, I'm only running 10 on each page. I ran into Billy the Goat, and she is like this exceptional rapper. She's just, just like this dope chick. And I miss story time on Twitter. And so my favorite thing of the week is her story time that was called, so inappropriate, forgive me, church members,
Tell us again whose account this is.
Billy the Goat.
Billy
Yes,
Billy the Goat.
Billy the Goat. She's female. She's female. She's
Sure.
pretty dope. So
As goats
story time with
can be.
Billy the Goat was, I have a dick appointment story.
Dick appointment. Dick appointment.
Oh boy, we're gonna get the fucking adult rating now.
So I mean, it's just so much fun. I'm looking at how much time we have. So it's just like, so I met.
Hold up.
What?
Do you guys make appointments for that?
I'm not saying anything. I have church.
I have never.
I have church members.
No one's ever asked me for an appointment.
I will say nothing. I
I
will say nothing.
plead the fifth.
All right.
I plead the fifth.
Billy the Goat
Billy
was your
the
favorite
Goat
thing
was
you
my
saw this
favorite
week.
thing, and it was
In her
just
dick appointment.
her
The dick appointment, and I'm sure that will be well worth your while if you look that up.
Hashtag dick appointment.
Hashtag. We may have just renamed the show. Ladies and
That's
gentlemen,
a different show.
welcome
That's a
to-
whole different show.
welcome to Dick. Welcome to Dick Appointment.
That comes on at a different time.
It's after 9
Just
o'clock.
goes.
It's
I
after
am
9
not,
o'clock.
and
We're
I am
good.
not blushing. This is terrible. This has been a horrible week.
All right. We gotta let Michelle collect herself here. Marcus, what was your favorite
I'm
thing?
gonna have some
A man
saw
died
this week.
Saturday afternoon
What the hell?
from injuries suffered during a shark attack
Oh my god.
off Cape Cod, authorities said, the first fatal encounter in Massachusetts in 8 decades. Bystanders pulled a 26-year-old bite victim onto Newcomb Hollow Beach and performed CPR, Wellfleet Police Lieutenant Michael Hurley said in a statement. Hold on here. Just pull it up. The man, who had been boogie boarding with another person, according to the Associated Press, was taken to Cape Cod Hospital. He later died. This is the plot of Jaws, people, and it's
Yeah.
actually happening in real
It's
life.
happening.
So there's like
All we need is a poorly dressed mayor being like, "The beaches will be open on the 4th of July.
Okay.
You do what you have to do,
They
but
can-
those beaches will be
So
open."
here's the whole
They
thing.
can borrow the one we have here in
Here's
DC.
the act. Wow. So in any event, I could totally see Muriel doing that too. That'd be amazing. I now want like that speech. That'd be amazing. I want it.
We're
I
gonna,
want it.
we're gonna be
I want
banned.
it. So in any event,
Oh my goodness.
the actual like real life like issue with this is that because of climate change,
Yeah.
our water is hotter.
Great white sharks are yeah.
Yeah. So because you have
Farther
like,
north.
right? Because you have hot water available like farther north, the plot from Jaws can actually happen in 2018
In Cape Cod.
in Cape Cod.
Mhm.
Yes.
I love Jaws as a film.
It is one of my favorites.
So the fact that Jaws is one of my favorite movies, it could happen in real life. I'm fascinated. Right, exactly. Like there it is. So I'm stunned. Like I'm laying in bed as I do every morning when I'm reading the news. And I'm laying in bed and all of a sudden I see the news and I shouted, "Holy shit, it's Jaws." This is amazing.
I'm gonna text him tomorrow morning.
Man.
You can.
I'm gonna text him. I'm gonna text you tomorrow morning when I get up, because that's normally when I know you're up.
Yeah, I'm up. And you can text me. That's the thing. If you have my phone number, you can text me.
Let-
Anytime after like 5:45, I'm up and I'm like active and it's happening.
Let me just say. Mike with the graphics tonight is killing it. Absolutely killing it.
Actual Jaws.
He pulled up the actual Jaws scene with the mayor.
Amazing. Amazing.
Facebook, you know how they like figure out everything that you open,
Yeah.
and so then they start feeding you stories. I get every shark attack story because I always open it. I'm like, oh my gosh, shark attack in Australia? A great white shark? Did she survive?
What was the one, the shark from the storm? It was like a shark in North Carolina that
Yeah.
was coming
Because
down the flood.
Sharknado?
no.
Sharknado
Okay.
is my shit.
No, Sharknado's wonderful.
I love Sharknado.
As a person who loves sharks movies,
What series? What
like
episode?
6 or something. It's
Sharknado
crazy.
6.
Ian Ziering is in
Ziering.
like every single one of them. It makes me happy. But no, so the one that gets me is like now you have like the sharks that wash up on like beaches like dead. And like I was talking to a friend of mine
But
about
it's
it.
sad.
And they're like, but Marcus, how does that happen? I go, well, the water's hot. Number one, climate change is real. And then number two, because of all these like, like crazy climate disasters that occur,
Yeah.
they don't have anywhere to go. They're already dead. I'm like, basically, these sharks are already dead in the water. Then
So-
they just wash up on land.
So if I go swimming with the sharks, are you gonna go with me? You know I want to get in the cage.
No, I really do. Like,
Oh my
I'm
God.
down for this. I'm
Ian?
totally down for this.
So are we gonna do an episode? Mike, are you gonna? Do we have some underwater equipment?
Welcome to a special edition of DC TBD.
Oh, shit, it's a shark.
Oh shit! It's a shark.
We're just chumming the water here.
Just like it out. How you doing?
All right. Let me get to my favorite thing
So
of the week.
Oh,
Sharks.
Can I
In
do
order-
Can I do my intro?
Yeah, please do.
Good evening, everybody. It is now story time with Ian. Ian,
Yes.
tell your story.
Thank you, Michelle.
that was really
Thank you,
well
Michelle.
Thank you.
Because my favorite thing, I'm going to tell a little story around my favorite thing, and it's a story that I've promised to tell both of our viewers, which sometimes it's just us, I guess.
It's just us.
It's just us.
done. All love.
Every time I see two
It's just me.
on
and-
the live feed, I'm
just-
like, that's
just me and you.
That's me and Michelle.
Yeah. He forgets.
I keep telling people that I'm going to tell the story of my Twitter handle which is at woke since '84. I highly recommend it. Please follow. I do most of my political stuff on Twitter. But at woke since '84. I mean, it's kind of gauche for a white dude to self-proclaim being woke. So let me explain why I do that. I have been a political junkie for most of my life. I was actually a poli-sci and history major at Michigan, and just been a junkie, like presidential politics. I follow them incessantly. Like CNN was the worst thing to ever happen to me because it was like you could follow the presidential campaigns every single day. And it goes back to 1984. 1984, President Reagan's re-election campaign. He's running against Walter Mondale, who had been Jimmy Carter's vice president. It was, what's the word for it? Slaughter.
Yeah, it was not a fair.
Just
it wasn't a
bloodbath. A bloodbath.
It was schmut.
It's that scene from The Simpsons.
Yeah. Walter Mondale won the state of Minnesota and the District of Columbia,
All right,
and
DC.
President Reagan won the rest of it. And we did that day, on election day, and I think I was in maybe like 5th grade, 6th grade. Election day, we did like a classroom election, and it was, they're doing the tallies. Reagan, just keeps going. Reagan. Then finally, Mondale. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. Reagan, Mondale. Reagan. 2 votes for Mondale.
Wow.
It was a class of about 30. It was a Catholic school, so there was always a lot of kids there. So a class of about 30. 2 votes for Mondale.
Mm-hmm.
The rest voted for Reagan. Myself and my great friend, Jason Morano, whose birthday it is today.
Happy birthday, Jason.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Jason.
Which version
Shout
should we
out
sing
to
him?
you.
Happy birthday to ya.
This is big shit right here.
Happy birthday to ya.
Happy birthday.
Okay, that's enough.
That was 3-part harmony on Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday there,
right.
Jason. That was right for you.
I'm an alto.
Shout out. You're my boy. You're always my boy. Since the 6th grade. Thick as thieves, man.
Thick as thieves.
Much love to you, Jason. Love to you guys as well.
Thank you.
This was a lot of fun tonight.
Absolutely.
This was a fun
It was.
episode of DC TVD. Even though we got into some heavy shit, but I feel like this was a really solid
worthwhile.
effort. Thank you, Mike Phillips behind the
Yes,
board.
sir.
Production.
Thank you to everybody here at Mindspace who puts us up. Thanks to Molly, One
Yes,
Love
yes.
Massive, and Heartcast Media, the new venture.
Yes.
New venture.
And stop banning
Molly
on Facebook.
Yeah,
Okay.
stop banning this woman.
Stop putting her in
Things.
Facebook jail.
Things.
Molly's is a voice that we need to hear all the time.
She's gonna call you out on your shit.
No doubt. So this is another action-packed
Whoop whoop.
episode of DC TVD. For Michelle Bush, for Marcus Dowling, I'm Ian Taranji. Good night.
Peace.
Good piece.